What if death was not an ending, but a doorway that your consciousness never truly crosses? What if the very fabric of reality bends around your awareness, ensuring that from your perspective, you never cease to exist? This is the haunting and awe-inspiring idea known as quantum immortality. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff, one slip away from a fatal fall. In one version of reality, you perish, but in another, one that only you experience, you survive. To you, consciousness continues unbroken, uninterrupted, as if death is nothing more than a rumor whispered by others. This isn't just science fiction, it's a hypothesis born out of the strange, almost mystical realm of quantum mechanics. At its core lies a provocative suggestion that your consciousness may never truly encounter its own end. Now, pause for a moment. Feel the gravity of that statement. The heart slows. The breathing deepens. Because if it's true, then all of our assumptions about life, death, and the soul collapse like paper structures in a storm. Throughout history, mystics and sages have spoken of immortality, not as the body persisting forever, but as consciousness itself transcending time and matter. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Hermetic writings, the ancient Egyptian funerary texts, all whisper the same secret. That which you are is not confined to flesh and bone. Quantum physics, in its own cryptic way, seems to echo this truth. The multiverse theory suggests that every possibility branches into countless realities. And within those endless branches, there may always be one where you survive. Your awareness clings to it like a flame that refuses to go out. In this video, we will embark on a journey through ancient philosophy and modern physics, exploring the uncanny overlap between spiritual teachings and quantum mysteries. We will unravel what quantum immortality means and whether consciousness could truly extend beyond the brain. But more importantly, we will look at what this means for you, for your life, your choices, your fears, and your destiny. If death is only an illusion, then how does that reshape the way you live today? By the end, you may see that immortality is not a promise for some faraway heaven, nor a fantasy of science fiction, but a mystery that has always been intertwined with the very nature of your being. This is not just a theory, it is a key, and once you hold it, you can never look at existence the same way again. Throughout the ages, humanity has wrestled with the enigma of death. To the untrained eye, it appears to be the final curtain, a vanishing of consciousness into nothingness. Yet, across cultures, traditions, and mystical schools, there has always been another whisper. Death is not the end. Let us step back thousands of years. In the temples of ancient Egypt, priests guided pharaohs through the mysteries of the duat, the afterlife. They believed the soul, what they called the Ba and Ka, would journey beyond the body, continuing in other realms. The Book of the Dead was not a text of mourning, but a manual of navigation, teaching consciousness how to pass through trials and illusions without dissolving. In the East, Hindu sages spoke of the Atman, the eternal self, untouched by birth or death. The Bhagavad Gita proclaims, "The soul is never born, nor does it ever die." Here, immortality is not granted. It is recognized as the truth of what you have always been. Buddhism, though subtle in its metaphysics, describes consciousness as a stream, flowing from one life to another. The Tibetan Book of the Dead provides vivid instructions for the bardo, an intermediate state after death, teaching the practitioner to awaken in the dreamlike passage and realize their immortal nature. Even in the West, echoes remain. The Greek philosopher Plato, in his dialogue Phaedo, argued that the soul cannot perish because it belongs to the realm of forms, timeless, indestructible, and eternal. Centuries later, Christian mystics would take this further, speaking of the eternal life that lies not in the continuation of the body, but in union with the divine essence. What ties these traditions together is not the promise of bodily survival, but the conviction that consciousness itself is not bound by material limits. And this is where modern science, strangely enough, begins to catch up. When quantum physics emerged in the 20th century, it shattered the classical worldview. Reality, once thought to be fixed and solid, revealed itself to be a dance of probabilities, collapsing into form only when observed. In this mysterious interplay, the role of the observer, the conscious witness, became central. Suddenly, physics and metaphysics were no longer strangers. The idea of quantum immortality builds upon this. If reality exists as branching probabilities, and if consciousness is the anchor that holds experience together, then perhaps it always chooses the branch where survival continues. To others, you may have died, but to yourself, awareness never ceases. You remain the traveler in a labyrinth of endless continuations. In a sense, this is not new. It is a modern restatement of what mystics have always known. The self is not extinguished, but reconfigured, shifted, reborn, whether in another body, another realm, or another branch of reality itself. Philosophers have long debated this. Is immortality a curse, as some myths suggest, or the ultimate liberation? Is the continuation of consciousness proof of a soul, or merely a quirk of physics? These questions remain unanswered, but their persistence across centuries suggests a deep truth. Humanity has always sensed that the mind extends beyond the fragile vessel of the brain. And now, with the rise of quantum theories and the rediscovery of ancient wisdom, we stand at a crossroads. Perhaps immortality is not to be found in temples or in laboratories alone, but in the convergence of both. The recognition that consciousness itself is the thread weaving through all worlds.
To understand quantum immortality, we must first peel back the layers of what it truly means. At its heart lies a convergence of two great mysteries: the nature of consciousness and the strange laws of quantum physics. Let's begin with quantum mechanics itself, the physics of the very small. At this microscopic scale, reality does not behave like the solid, predictable world we see around us. Instead, particles exist in states of probability. An electron is not in one place or another until it is measured. It is in many possible states at once, a phenomenon called superposition. The act of observation collapses those possibilities into a single outcome. But this immediately raises a haunting question. What happens to the other possibilities? Do they vanish? Or do they branch off into alternate universes, as the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics suggests? If many worlds is true, then every decision, every roll of the dice, every life and death moment spawns countless alternate timelines. In some, you succeed. In others, you fail. In some, you live. In others, you die. Now, here's where quantum immortality enters the scene. Your consciousness, the mysterious field of awareness that experiences life, may never actually follow the branches where death occurs. Instead, it continues along the branches where you survive. From your perspective, there is always a continuation, always a survival, always a path forward. Think of it like a river that flows into many tributaries. Most of them dry up or crash into rocks, but the water that is you always finds its way into the channels that keep flowing. To the world around you, death may be real, but to your inner witness, the self that looks out through your eyes, it never arrives. Consider a thought experiment often used to explain this idea. Imagine you're part of a dangerous game of chance, where a machine randomly determines life or death with each trigger pull. Statistically, others will observe that most participants perish, but from your own perspective, You never experience the outcome with death. Instead, reality selects the branches where you survive, and you continue on, sometimes against all odds. This suggests something profound, that consciousness is not a passive bystander in the universe. It is not just generated by the brain like smoke from a fire. Instead, it may be the very thing that determines which version of reality you inhabit. And if that is true, then the brain itself is not the origin of awareness, but a kind of receiver, a tuning device. Just as a radio is not the source of the broadcast, but the instrument that captures it, the brain may simply be an antenna for consciousness. When the radio breaks, the broadcast continues, unseen, but very much alive. Ancient wisdom aligns with this metaphor. Hindu texts describe the body as a temporary vessel, while the Atman, the true self, exists beyond it. Plato spoke of the body as a prison for the soul, which longs to return to the eternal realm of forms. Even mystics in Sufi traditions have called the human mind a mirror, reflecting, but not creating, the light of awareness. Quantum immortality offers a scientific echo of these truths. It suggests that what you are, your consciousness, may never actually encounter its own non-existence. From within your own stream of experience, life continues endlessly, though the forms it takes may shift in ways beyond comprehension. But before we embrace this vision too easily, we must dive deeper, for hidden within this idea are paradoxes, challenges, and unsettling questions. If you cannot die, then what does survival really mean? If you persist across infinite branches, what becomes of your identity, your memories, your sense of self? To uncover these mysteries, we must continue our exploration into the second half of the explanation, where philosophy, physics, and spirituality collide in even more profound ways.
If quantum immortality means that your consciousness always slides into the branches where survival continues, then we must ask, what exactly are you surviving as? Is it the same person, with the same memories, in the same body? Or is the very continuity of identity far more fluid than we imagine? Here lies one of the great paradoxes. From your perspective, you may never encounter death. Yet the you that persists may not always be identical to the you of yesterday. Think of a flame passing from one candle to another. The light continues, but the form shifts. This is not immortality of the flesh, but immortality of the witness. Modern philosophers compare this to a cosmic lottery. In one timeline, perhaps you narrowly escape a car crash. In another, you recover from an illness that should have been fatal. In yet another, you find yourself surviving against all odds while others fall. To those outside observers, your survival may seem miraculous, but to you, it is inevitable, because your awareness never tracks the worlds in which it ends. Now pause and consider how this reframes the entire human story. Religions have long promised salvation, rebirth, or eternal life. Science has promised material explanations. But quantum immortality sits at the strange intersection of both, whispering, the survival of consciousness may be baked into the very architecture of reality. Still, there are unsettling questions. If you always survive, does this mean you are condemned to endless existence, even in suffering? Imagine a universe where you persist indefinitely, aging beyond recognition, or trapped in circumstances where survival feels more like a curse than a blessing. Ancient myths warn of this. The Greek figure Tithonus was granted immortality, but not eternal youth, condemned to wither endlessly. Could quantum immortality be a similar fate? Others suggest the opposite, that survival is not linear, but expansive. Perhaps your consciousness does not march forward in one unbroken line, but spreads outward into multiple versions of yourself, into parallel lives, into countless expressions across the multiverse. From this perspective, you are not one being struggling against death, but an infinite network of awareness, exploring reality from every angle. This echoes the teachings of Advaita Vedanta in India, which declares that the self is not personal, but universal. Tattvam asi, thou art that. You are not a fragment fighting for survival, but the whole ocean taking the shape of countless waves. In this light, quantum immortality is not just about never dying, but it is about realizing that you were never bound by it in the first place. The body may fall away, the world may shift, but you, the silent witness behind the eyes, remain. And so, quantum immortality is less a theory to prove, more a mirror to look into. It reflects back an ancient truth, that consciousness is not born and it does not perish. It only changes its masks again and again in the endless theater of existence.
So far, we have wandered through the realms of quantum physics, philosophy, and mysticism. But let us return to the essential question. What does this mean for you, right now, in your daily life? It is easy to get lost in speculation about immortality, parallel realities, and eternal survival. But the true power of this knowledge lies not in abstraction, but in how it transforms the way you live. If you carry within you the possibility that death is not an end, but only a transition, how would that reshape your choices, your fears, your sense of meaning? First, consider fear itself. Much of human suffering arises from the terror of loss of life, of identity, of loved ones. If consciousness truly extends beyond the brain, then death is no longer a void, but a doorway. When you meditate on this, fear begins to loosen its grip. You live more fully because you no longer live under the shadow of annihilation. Practice number 1. Contemplation on the witness. Find a quiet place, sit in stillness, close your eyes, and turn awareness inward. Ask yourself, who is it that observes my thoughts, my breath, my heartbeat? Let your attention rest not on the objects of experience, but on the experiencer itself, the silent witness. Do this regularly, and you begin to taste the truth that awareness itself cannot be harmed. It is not born with the body, and it does not perish with it. Practice number 2. Living as if you were eternal. Imagine, for a day, that you are immortal, not your body, but your consciousness. How would you live differently? Would you cling less to possessions? Would you fear less about reputation? Would you dare to follow your highest calling without hesitation? This exercise is not fantasy. It is a way to align your life with the deeper truth that what you are cannot be destroyed. Practice number 3. Reframing suffering. When challenges arise, remind yourself this moment is not the whole of your existence. Just as dreams dissolve upon waking, so too do hardships dissolve in the vastness of consciousness. Write down a struggle you face today, and beside it write, "This too is a passing mask. I am the witness beyond it." Such reframing shifts suffering from an unbearable weight to a transient wave upon an endless ocean. Practice number 4. The death meditation. Many ancient traditions, from Tibetan Buddhism to Stoic philosophy, recommended meditating on death, not as morbid obsession, but as liberation. Spend a few minutes each day visualizing the dissolution of your body, the release of breath, the fading of thoughts. Then ask, what remains? If awareness persists even in imagination, perhaps it persists beyond imagination too. This meditation dissolves fear and awakens gratitude for every moment of life. Practice number 5. Compassion born from immortality.
If consciousness is not confined to you alone, but woven into the very fabric of reality, then every being you encounter is another reflection of that same eternal awareness. From this perspective, harming others is harming yourself. Practicing kindness, patience, and compassion is no longer moral obligation. It is recognition of the deeper unity beneath appearances. With these practices, the theory of quantum immortality ceases to be a distant speculation. It becomes a daily path, a way of living more courageously, more consciously, and more lovingly. But let us also acknowledge the shadow side. To believe in endless survival could tempt one into recklessness or nihilism. If I never truly die, why should anything matter? The answer is simple. While consciousness may be eternal, the forms it takes are precious and unique. This life, this body, this chapter, once gone, will never return in exactly the same way. To honor it fully is to live as both immortal and finite, infinite and fragile. So walk the middle path. Live as though your awareness cannot end, but love as though every moment is your last. In this balance lies true wisdom.
From the temples of Egypt to the mathematics of quantum physics, one whisper has remained constant. You are more than the body, more than the brain, more than this fleeting life. Quantum immortality is not merely a scientific curiosity. It is a mirror, reflecting back the ancient truth that consciousness cannot be contained, confined, or extinguished. What you are is not the flicker of a single flame, but the fire that lights countless worlds. Think of this. Every fear, every hesitation, every sorrow. How much of it is built on the belief that life ends? What if that belief is the greatest illusion of all? If death is only a veil, a shifting of perspective, then the real challenge is not to survive, but to awaken. And awakening begins now, in this very moment. When you breathe with awareness, you touch eternity. When you look into another's eyes and see not a separate body, but a shared light, you taste immortality. When you live without clinging, without fear, you step into the truth that sages, mystics, and now even physicists hint at. You are the witness that never dies. But here is the mystery. Immortality is not a guarantee of comfort, nor a promise of endless pleasure. It is an invitation to live boldly, to love deeply, and to seek wisdom without fear. For even if consciousness cannot end, the forms it wears are fragile, fleeting, and infinitely precious. So take this knowledge not as a doctrine, but as a key. Use it to unlock courage where fear once reigned. Use it to transform ordinary days into sacred moments. Use it to walk through life as one who knows the end is not the end. As you reflect on these truths, remember, immortality is not something to be gained in the future. It is already here, woven into the silence behind your thoughts, the awareness within your breath, the stillness at the core of your being. The question is not whether you are immortal. The question is, what will you do knowing that you are?